MTV caught up with Duran at a press conference held during their sold-out tour dates in Los Angeles. Following the press conference, lead guitarist Andy Taylor told us how this tour is different than the band's previous U.S. tours.
It's strange. I mean, like, for example, Seattle, which was the first tour in the U.S., first gig in the U.S., I checked that day and we played to 660 people the last time we played in Seattle. And then we played to 14,000 the other night.
Keyboard player Nick Rhodes said that Duran will continue to tour for as long as the band exists.
We're proud of the fact that we can present our show live. I mean, it's a great thing. It's something that I don't think can ever be replaced by video. I think they're two very separate things. And live, for us, is that one-to-one contact with the audience that I can't ever really see us stopping as long as the band exists.
No.
During the press conference, lead singer Simon Le Bon talked about the band's future.
This is good fun. And I think I speak for all of us when I say we'll stick with it while it's still fun. I mean, as soon as it becomes boring, we'll stop it.
Finished it, and it looked so good to us that we decided, well, let's make it into something bigger. Let's try and work a story into it so that we can really develop the show and try and sort of bring out parallels with life and a kind of fantasy story as well.
I personally find normal live concert films very boring, and we just wanted to add a new dimension to that and just do something that was completely new.
Very difficult to do much with a concert film apart from have a concert. That's why we started to incorporate more of the techniques you can use with video editing.
There's a lot of things which go on in your subconscious mind when you're watching a band on stage that actually don't appear on stage. There's things in the words which make you think. There's images that are created in a very strange way by the band and the lights, which could never transfer onto film. So we thought, well, let's not leave it a chance and hope that some of that is expressed, but let's actually put something in there. Let's take some of the more subtle ideas that are in the songs and in the stage presentation and actually give them to people on the film.
Taylor was drunk at a party one evening, and he saw Cubby over by the bar, and with all that Dutch courage boiling up inside him, he went over and basically told, he asked Cubby, he said, about time he had a decent band do the theme song for the next film, so how about Duran Duran? And he said, okay, I'll listen to some tracks. And he listened to tracks and said, yeah, have a go. And we just came up and we started writing it with John Barry. And we just did it like that, bang. Fait accompli.
Now, when was the recording made? How long ago?
Quite a while back, actually. We started it in about November of 1984. And then we recorded it around Christmas time. And the strings were put on in January of 85. And it was sort of finished around late February, I think, mixed late February. I mean, it's just like a few days at a time. It's actually quite split up. It's the most split up recording we've done. I think it worked very well in the end.
Meeting you with a view to a kill, face to face in secret places, feel the chill. Nightfall covers me, but you know the plans I'm making still oversee. Could it be the whole of opening wide? A sacred why, a mystery gaping inside. The weekends why, until we dance into the fire. That fatal kiss is all we need. Dance into the fire, to fatal sounds of broken dreams. Dance into the fire. That fatal kiss is all we need. Dance into the fire. Choice for you is the view to a kill. Between the shades, assassination standing still. First crystal tears fall as snowflakes on your body. First time in years to drench your skin with lover's rosy stain. A chance to find the phoenix for the flame. A chance to die. But can we dance into the fire? That fatal kiss is all we need. Dance into the fire, to fatal sounds of broken dreams. Dance into the fire. That fatal kiss is all we need. Dance into the fire. When all we see is the view to a kill.
Why you decided to put together the power station?
Good question. No, we've been friends for a long time, and we've been talking about doing some record, you know. We were just going to do a version of Get It On, Bang and Gong, you know, the T-Rex song, and we met Tony Thompson from Chic when he was drumming with David Bowie, and the whole thing just came together. And
It
then,
took 3 years, really.
Yeah,
just for the logistics of everybody to be in the same place at the same time. And then once we were all together, it just snowballed really quickly. And we just kept doing it until the producer said, stop, we've got an album.
We'd probably still be recording if you hadn't have said stop. You know, it was just really magical in the studio, considering we never ever played. It's like going back to the garage, you know, and you were just playing with your friends, but at the same time we had all the technology and we had, you know.
Have you completed it yet, or are you just about to start, or what?
Well, actually, at the moment, Duran Duran are not working on an album.
You're thinking about it?
No, we're going to start the Duran Duran album in September of this year. At the moment, we've split into two different sort of camps. So, as is Simon, Roger, and I are doing an album in Paris, which is a little different to Duran Duran stuff. It's got little elements of jazz and.
Did I not read the other day that Dave Gilmour's joining you on it as well?
Well, he's
played on some.
A couple of guitar tracks. We had, well, wait till it comes out. There's a few people on it.
Are you happy with the results so far?
Very happy, yeah. I think it's definitely the sort of newest sounding thing we've done in a long time.
I mean, it's good. I mean, with what we've been doing over in Paris and also what the Power Station's doing in New York, you do find a lot of new influences from areas which you'd never really walked through before. And you bring them back to the band, fuse them all together. That's exciting.
What was your reaction when John and Andy went off to do their album? Any hurt feelings?
A lot of people in the media have been trying to set us up as enemies with the Power Station. They've been trying desperately to do that. And there was absolutely no question of any animosity whatsoever. God, I'm proud of what they've done. I'm proud for them. I see that record getting at the charts in America, and I'm getting, oh, wow, that makes my heart beat. And I think we all are totally and absolutely behind the Power Station in the way that we know they'll be absolutely and totally behind our project.
Hey everybody, welcome to part 4 of my Duran Duran in the 80s Deep Dive series. And for this episode, I'm not going to be talking about one specific album. I'm going to be covering 3 albums in this series. Now, I'm not going to go track by track because this video would be over an hour long if I did that for 3 albums. So I'm going to be talking about 3 albums in general terms. There's a lot of ground to cover between 1983, when Duran Duran released the 7 and the Ragged Tiger album, and 1986, when they released their next official studio album. But there was still a lot of Duran Duran related activities in the intervening years. So we're going to start off with their live album, Arena Live with One studio track, The Wild Boys. This was released in November of 1984, and it was to document their 1984 worldwide tour, although I believe all the songs were recorded in California for that album. But nonetheless, it's a live document. It's a single album, and like I say, Wild Boys was the one studio track that they stuck on there at the end of side 1. So it starts off with Is There Something I Should Know, which was a huge single. The studio version was a huge single in the summer of 1983. And then we get 3 tracks from the Rio album, Hungry Like the Wolf, New Religion, Save a Prayer. Now, for all these songs, they're pretty faithful to the studio version. Yeah, there's little nuances here or there that are different, but it's pretty faithful to the studio tracks. There's not a lot of difference. So if you're looking for improvisational jams or different arrangements, you're not going to get that here. I mean, we're talking about Duran Duran, a video band. And I'm not trying to disparage this as a live album. It is enjoyable if you like Duran Duran. But if you weren't paying close enough attention, you could easily mistake any of these for the studio versions. And then at the end of the side 1, we have the Wild Boys, the one studio track on here, which was released as a single also in November of 1984. It's okay. I am not a huge fan of the Wild Boys. Never have been. I don't think it's a terrible track. It's just not, for me, one of my favorite Duran Duran songs. If I were putting together a Duran Duran playlist, there's a very good chance Wild Boys would not make it on there. But anyway, side 2, you've got The Seventh Stranger, which, of course, was off the most recent 7 and the Ragged Tiger album. The Chauffeur, which was off Rio. Union of the Snake, from Seven and the Ragged Tiger, Planet Earth, and Careless Memories, which were both on their debut album. So, yeah, it's pretty fair. I mean, Girls on Film and I think Rio were on the CD remastered version. So the actual live video document of this concert was also called Arena. And then there's a documentary that covered their 1984 tour called Sing Blue Silver. And then you have a condensed version of the Arena concert film called As the Lights Go Down. I think it's like an hour long. But anyway, lots of activity. It was such a huge mega tour for Duran Duran. And then Duran Duran decided that they were going to take a break. And could you blame them? I mean, nonstop from 1981 to 1983, when they weren't on the road or filming videos, they were in the studio recording albums. Again, it's that treadmill that I've talked about in other videos that burns bands out very quickly, and Duran Duran was no exception. So they knew they wanted to take a break, but John and Andy Taylor got itching to start making music again, and they wanted to do something outside of the Duran Duran, the pressure, the hype surrounding a new Duran Duran release, and they wanted to, at least by their own admission, they wanted to do something a little harder rocking than what Duran Duran had to offer. So Andy and John decided to form a supergroup. They got Tony Thompson, who was the drummer for Chic, and they pulled in Robert Palmer after the original concept actually was for the three of them, Tony, John, and Andy, to record rhythm tracks and then invite a number of different vocalists in to provide vocals. But after Robert Palmer laid down a couple of vocals, they're like, this is our guy. This is going to be our group. And then, wouldn't you know it, after the album was recorded, Robert Palmer split, said, I'm out of here. I'm going to record my next solo album, Riptide. And they ended up bringing in Michael DeBar for promotional purposes and live performances and whatnot. Now, the big singles off here were obviously Some Like It Hot. They did a cover of the T-Rex song, Get It On, Bang a Gong. And the third single was a track called Communication. Now, I find it interesting that John and Andy were saying that they wanted to get into a harder rocking album, that they wanted to split off when they were taking a break from Duran Duran and do something a little harder rocking. I mean, the music on here does not sound all that different than anything Duran Duran might have come out with on their next album. So it's not like they suddenly got into hard rock or heavy metal with this album. It really, I mean, you got Tony Thompson on drums, so you know it's not going to be a heavy metal album. Essentially, it kind of sounds a bit like Duran Duran, but with Robert Palmer on vocals. I could see how some of this material, if they had not formed a supergroup, some of this material could have worked its way into the next Duran Duran album very comfortably. But I think John, and particularly Andy, I think Andy was tired of the whole Duran Duran being a pop idol, being a teen heartthrob, and he really wanted to break away from that and kind of establish an identity outside of Duran Duran. This album was released in March of 1985. Duran Duran would come back together in early 1985, and they would record the title track to the A View to a Kill, and they would come back together in July of 1985 to perform as Live Aid. Now, Andy and John also performed with Power Station at Live Aid, but at least you had Duran Duran back together on stage, which nobody knew would be the last time in 20 years, almost 20 years, that the original lineup of Duran Duran would perform together again. So you had the Power Station album in March of 1985. You had Duran Duran coming back together for two projects in summer of 1985, and then they scattered again to the wind. Well, apparently Simon Le Bon and Nick Rhodes were able to corral Roger Taylor together for their own little mini group, which kind of seems a little silly now, I guess. And I kind of suspect they were trying to get John and Andy back into the studio for a Duran Duran recording, and John and Andy were too busy with Power Station stuff or just weren't interested. And so the three of them Simon, Nick, and Roger decided, well, we'll do our own thing, but we'll call it something separate from Duran Duran. I'm sure part of it was, okay, you guys are going to go off and you're going to do your little side project. Well, we're going to get together and do ours. I don't know that at the beginning of 1985, there was this deliberate decision that you two do your project, the three of us are going to do our project. I tend to think that Roger, Nick, and Simon were taken a bit off guard. They were caught off guard when they found out that the power station was a thing. But at the end of 1985, rumors were swirling, was Duran Duran ever gonna get back together? Now, for all intents and purposes, the Arcadia album, Arcadia was what Simon, Nick, and Roger named their band, their side project. It sounds like a Duran Duran album. You know what? I have this filed in with my Duran Duran albums. That's how much I consider this a Duran Duran album without John and without Andy. It just is. I mean, come on. Let's not call it Arcadia. Let's call it what it is. It is Duran Duran. And they said they were trying to, much like John and Andy said that they were trying to move into more hard rock territory, Nick and Simon, at least publicly, said they wanted to explore a different sound than what they were doing in Duran Duran. And much like the Power Station album, this doesn't sound all that different from what a new Duran Duran album would have sounded like. So that's the state of affairs at the end of 1985. Okay, so first things first, what do I think of the Power Station album? Well, I gotta say, every musician is on his game. You got the fantastic drumming of Tony Thompson, which is so up front in the mix. The thing you immediately notice about each of these songs is that the drum is mic'd all the way up. Like, the drum sound is so heavy, it's so loud. And I'm a big drum guy, so I'm not complaining, but it's just kind of funny. Every song, like, the drumming is mic'd almost louder than the guitars. But there's great bass work on here. Fantastic. Like, Andy finally, it's like the album that he wanted to record, where he can just totally shred on the guitar. And it really makes you appreciate what a great guitarist Andy Taylor is. The songs themselves, are they as strong as what we might have gotten on a Duran Duran album? I mean, probably not. You don't have that melodic sensibility that I think Nick Rhodes brought to the table, or the lyrical mystique necessarily that Simon Le Bon would have brought. Roger Taylor actually does a little bit of drumming on this album, so technically you got 3/5 of Duran Duran, at least on some of the tracks, just like you've got 3/5 of Duran Duran on Arcadia. But nonetheless, Roger was kind of going back, I think, between the two camps. But nonetheless, it's a great sounding album. This band cooks. They did another album in 1996, but without John Taylor. He was in rehab, and he was kind of a mess, so he wasn't able to actually perform on that album. But it's interesting to think if they had continued on, what future subsequent albums might have sounded like. But yeah, this is a really solid album. My favorite tracks are the singles, Some Like It Hot and Get It On, Bang It Gone. But I also love, they do a cover of the Isley Brothers, Harvest for the World. That might be my favorite song on this record, actually. I love it. a buzzsaw guitar lick from Andy. And again, that rhythm section just cooks. So Power Station is a great, great album, especially if you're a Duran Duran fan. Even though, you know, say what you will about Robert Palmer's voice, I think his voice is very suited to these songs. You know, sometimes I wonder, well, how would a Simon Le Bon have sounded on some of these? But I like Robert Palmer. He's a great, soulful vocalist, so I don't have any issues with him. But Power Station is a really great, fun album. Arcadia, So Red the Rose. Now, Election Day was a lead-off single on this album, and sounds exactly like Duran Duran. It is Duran Duran, as do most of these songs. I mean, they do stretch out a little bit. Songs are a little darker, a little moodier, maybe, than what we'd heard before from Duran Duran. But overall, Election Day is great. Keep Me in the Dark, again, sounds just like Duran Duran. It's a little more synth poppier, not as much guitar. It's more I want to say goth synth pop, although their image, as you can tell from some of the videos, they all dyed their hair black. They started wearing dark clothes. In a minor way, it has that goth feel to it, but primarily it's what a synth pop album sounded like in 1985. The Flame is a great song. You have a great ballad with Goodbye is Forever. These are really enjoyable songs on here. And again, I really consider this like a lost Duran Duran album. Like I say, I file it with my Duran Duran albums, and I do consider this to be a Duran Duran record. I like side 1 a lot more than I like side 2. But, you know, The Promise is great. Rose Arcana is pretty cool. And it sort of leads the way. I mean, this was sort of the transitional into the Notorious album. There are also some great guest musicians on this album. Herbie Hancock, Sting, David Gilmour. Yeah, Pink Floyd's David Gilmour plays guitar on a few tracks. Grace Jones. Yeah, so there are a number of celebrity guests that do appear on this record. But So Red the Rose is a great, not quite Duran Duran, but the closest thing we would get to Duran Duran in 1985. So anyway, wanted to deal with these records, but I didn't want to do this as a lead into my Notorious deep dive. So I just wanted to take some time and cover each of these records because there was some busy activity in 84 and 85. So in my next episode, I am going to be covering the Notorious album, which would pare Duran Duran down to a trio. What happened? Well, we'll find out in the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one, and take care.